Yeah. Sipping on that tea, but I need something thicker. Quench my thirst and give me a little kicker like that black news undisputed. I like that morning coffee, no cream with no sugar. Strong, black, and bold, and that's a fact. Reason why I keep coming back. So serve me up with that morning coffee. So serve me up with that morning coffee.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Andre Jaho, and we are here with another episode of the Morning Coffee Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here, as always, with JD. What's up, man?
What's going on, everybody? How y'all feeling?
Yes. Thank God for another day. Another day, another dollar. We are, dealing with this whole election cycle. As you know, we do pre-record this, so this is actually, we're recording this on the day after the election, and as of right now, we don't know who the next president is, but I guess by the time this is being broadcast, we should know. So, we gotta keep our fingers crossed, pray. I hope everybody went out there and voted. I really hope they did. So I hope you did, guys. So if you didn't, don't complain. That's all I got to say.
Hey, listen. This guy, whoever wins, there's going to be some complaints. You know what I'm saying? And you already know how I feel about voting. And yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. So to everybody's, probably everybody's surprise, I did vote yesterday. And yeah, man, I voted yesterday, and to be honest, I feel a way about it. But, we'll talk about that later.
All right. Well, we are here with the Morning Coffee Podcast, and today's topic is going to be mental health. All right, that'll be today's topic: mental health in the African American and Hispanic community, because we're dealing with a lot of crap right now, man. The Black Lives Matter movement, black men and women getting killed, Hispanic Americans losing their children, being taken. Well, I want to say they lost their children. Their children were stolen, basically. Taken from them. So, that can make you go crazy, You know what I'm saying? All this death that's going around with COVID-19 and everything. It's a lot to process. It's a lot to handle, man. And
you're right.
We need to talk to professionals, people that know about this stuff. I'm not an expert on mental health at all. I
actually have questions.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. I watch YouTube videos. I hear people talking about it. Charlemagne on the Breakfast Club always talk about he has a therapist and all that kind of stuff. I do have people that I talk to, and it does help when you talk to people. But
For sure.
Want to bring on the professionals. So we had to call in a few favors, and we had to bring on get some big guns to come in here today.
Right.
So we could get some answers and get her perspective on things. So I want to introduce this lovely young lady. She is a professional in mental health. You know what I'm saying? She knows what she's talking about. All right. And I want to bring her on. Sharhonda Kirksey, how are you?
Welcome.
I'm well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on here today.
Yes, we're excited to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for the Morning Coffee Podcast. We really appreciate your time. You're very busy. You got a caseload of people to deal with. So we're not going to keep you long, but we want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes. So, I just wanted to talk about, mental health, as we were saying in the intro. With black, we have our children being taken from us. Even with black people too, people's children are being taken from them, because they're being killed. It's like, how can you process that? You kill my son, you kill my daughter, or vice versa, or I come to this country, whether I come illegally or not. Imagine myself, I have children, I go to Canada, and then they want to separate me from my kids because I'm black. That's
Right.
that's that's exactly what happened with the Mexican, coming in here. So it's like it's crazy. What are your thoughts on everything?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned everything that's going on with the Hispanic and Black community because I was just watching an interview on the news this morning, and it basically said, America's been in this pandemic, but Black people have been in the pandemic for 400 plus years now.
Mm-hmm.
For their lives. We've been fighting for our lives for a very long time. And the mental health aspect of it is that we've endured so much trauma that it comes out in our behavior, in ways we live, and how we manage our lives. And we don't understand it as mental health, but it's definitely mental health because we've been traumatized, not just from watching videos Black and brown people being killed by police. That's trauma. We've been traumatized by being discriminated against. So you have the pandemic coronavirus, and we are like at the top of that list. How are we at the top of that list? Because of discrimination in the healthcare system. So then again, we're traumatized. Um, so mental health is really complex. It's really huge for the Black community because we have so many adverse experiences that we're having. And so we have to take time, sit back, whether it's talking to a friend or whether it's going to a therapist, we need to take time and sit back and analyze where we are mentally and then seek help to level that out, get everything in order, and make sure we're living our lives authentically, confronting our emotions, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Because we always think about taking our care of ourselves physically. Um, we go to the doctor, maybe not, because sometimes we don't trust them either.
True. True.
um,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll go to the doctor, or we'll exercise, or we'll be vegan, or we'll try to eat right, but we don't take care of this. And that's one of the main organs that supplies the rest of our body. And if we don't take care of it, it causes more diabetes, high blood pressure. It causes more anxiety, depression. It causes neurological disorders. People don't know that if your mental health is not in order, you can have a disease strictly neurological and not show any symptoms
Mm.
as far as blood tests and everything like that, but you would need therapy to get over diabetes. That's a true thing that happens.
Wow.
So we really need to pay attention to our mental health more than we do.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that last one. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It's a illness. It's a mental health illness called conversion. I wrote it down because I have to remember certain stuff. But it's called conversion disorder,
Okay. I
and
think
it's
I've heard of
strictly
that.
neurological. It's strictly
Wow.
neurological. And you can present with seizures, you can present with diabetes, you can present with diabetic neuropathy, pain.
Mm.
Um, it's mostly seen in Black women first,
Mm.
but it's because you've held so much in here and you haven't released it. And so it comes out in illnesses. And then
Mm.
you would need therapy. Doctors can't fix it. You would need therapy to relieve yourself of all the other symptoms.
Wow. That just
Yeah,
shows the strength of your brain, of your mind, man. That's,
right.
I mean, and and like, and I said often on the show, I'm a Christian. I believe, I definitely, there's a lot of connection to what we think. I mean, I don't know. I know everybody doesn't believe, but in the Bible, those who do believe, they can see or they know. Like, it talks about what you believe in your mind. As a man
Mhm.
believes, so is he. So, it makes a lot of sense. People try to separate, separate that with science, but it really is a
Right.
crime more than people think.
Yeah, yeah. And we have to, I think Christians have to be careful in um, trying to medicate only through prayer or only through going to church or only through worship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's okay for Christians to go seek therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of church, and I'll give my own example. When I grew up in a church and I went to church most of my life,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I was having really bad anxiety. And I
Okay.
kept saying, I'm feeling crazy. I'm feeling weird in my head. I just thought I can't get my thoughts together, or my thoughts are racing. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of church mothers would say, "Well, go pray," or "That's the devil," and they would pray for me and get these spirits
Right.
out,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it really got to the level of me starting to have like suicidal ideation
Okay.
before I said, "Okay, this has to be in my body. This has to be mental. It's not, you know, the
Right.
devil, or it's not me doing something that I'm not supposed to do. It's none
Right.
of that. I had
Right.
a serious medical condition and I needed to
Mm-hmm.
go get it treated. And so I had to break away from certain thoughts that the church would tell me so that I
Okay.
could get better for myself. You know what I mean? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important for Christians and believers to understand that mental health is important in everything the devil, even though he busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of those things, like I said, they're intertwined. I mean,
Right.
this is what for believers, the devil, your mind is his main battlefield. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what he's going to attack because, as you said, if your mind, if you have, if something's in your mind is wrong, it can affect everything else. So, I think, unfortunately, when just speaking about the church and
Hmm.
those church mothers, they probably meant well. They just
Right.
they didn't know. They didn't know
Right.
any better. They didn't realize like, yeah, God, he gives people these gifts. He gives
Hmm.
doctors these gifts. He gives healers and counselors these gifts. And
Right.
and people, they don't study the word because the word actually tells you in a multitude of counsel. You need that. You need good
Right.
counsel. So it's okay to go and talk to somebody. When you
Hmm.
look at it, a pastor really is a counselor. That's part of their calling is to counsel
Hmm.
people. And everybody doesn't have the same level of understanding to do that. So if there are professional counselors, yeah, therapy is very, very helpful, man. I think that
Right.
it's very helpful and it's very needed. Obviously it's
Hmm.
very needed, and God puts
Yeah.
people there. We just try to separate it, and that's when people start, like you said, they I guess you can say self-medicate themselves
Yeah.
mentally, but it doesn't always work if you don't know what to do.
Yeah. And,
You
and,
know.
you, and you know too, it was something you said about them being intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fine line I think that
Mm-hmm.
we have to make
Mm-hmm.
to for people that are succumb to mental health issues or mental health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
If and I come from a Pentecostal background, so we
Okay.
believed in hearing from God. We believed in, God told me something, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So for a person in a mental health state, if you're
Mm-hmm.
if you tell them uh that's from the devil, or you tell them that's the devil playing in your mind, that causes
Mm-hmm.
more anxiety. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's like a really fine line when your pastor can be a counselor, or is he a psychologist or psychiatrist with a background in mental health and he knows how to treat a disease. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So I like to draw that distinction. So for people that are actually dealing with mental health issues, don't get it in their head that they are suffering from a demon tormenting them versus they're suffering from an actual um, disease of the brain that can be treated and managed. And then they can get
Mhm.
better and possibly stop hearing voices, or they can get better and start to feel better, more happy, versus feeling like they're constantly tormented. Um, because people that feel tormented want to be eased of life, and then you start getting into suicide and all those other kind of things. So it's
Mhm.
really a delicate balance between I'm hearing God and I really need help, you know.
Hmm. Well, I don't. I got a lot of questions, so I don't know. I'll let
Okay.
you.
No, go ahead, JD, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you because this is something that you could probably educate me. I mean,
Mhm.
well, I'm sure you can, but I wonder how many times people are misdiagnosed because when you look at kids, for example, right, with the whole
Mhm.
ADHD thing, and it's like sometimes I feel like people are quick to, let me say this. So what you were saying about drawing a fine line, I'm
Mhm.
probably like, we're probably right on the edge, both of us, but we're probably just
Uh-huh.
on different sides of the line. You know what I'm
Got
saying? But
it. Okay.
we're both like right there, but we maybe
Uh-huh.
just on different sides of the line. You have more education in mental health than I do, so maybe
Mhm.
you can, that's why I'm hoping I can be enlightened a little bit. Um, so with that said, so with the whole ADHD thing with kids, I know sometimes when I've seen kids get diagnosed with this, where I've known these kids, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, the things that they're saying that they're dealing with, these kids are not really dealing, like I can see that they're not really dealing with. They say, oh, these kids are not capable of doing X, Y, and Z, and then they'll say it's because of this. But I'm like, but these kids are capable of doing these things. So
Mhm.
how often do you see like a misdiagnosis, and how can we avoid that as parents, when these teachers or, maybe even doctors say, your kid has this, we want to give them this medicine to help them. Like, a lot of parents are like, I don't want to give my kids this, and then
Right.
you hear a lot of parents saying, don't let your kids, don't let them misdiagnose your children. But that could be dangerous too, because some kids may need it, so how do we
Right.
draw the distinction when these doctors seem to be diagnosing, like, all these kids who have similar, just, to us, they're just acting like kids, you know?
Right. I understand what you're saying, and that is like a one of those fine lines.
Okay.
Um, so I used to work in a residential treatment facility, which was a psychiatric. They lived there 24/7. The kids did from 5 years. I think our youngest kid was about 5, and the oldest were 18 years old. Then we had
Okay.
an adult wing. But I worked with specifically the girls. And
Okay.
we had a client I knew had ADHD.
Okay.
She fidgeted a lot. They lived there, they ate there, they slept there, they had school there.
Hmm.
During school, it was like a change in her, like she was already always ready to go, high energy, you know what I
Right.
mean? But when it was time to sit in class, she would need to be doing something. She would need to be active. And she described it and she would cry because she was frustrated because she wanted to be like the other children and sit and pay attention and not
Hmm.
have all this going on. But it's like her body wouldn't let her rest.
Hmm.
And so we had to develop a treatment plan for her that allowed her time. If we noticed that she started getting antsy, we had to allow her time outside of the classroom to go to the gym, to throw the ball. And because it was a psychiatric place, it was that could be done.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but we would allow her to go outside of the classroom, throw the ball, run around the gym, do laps, whatever it needed for her to burn that extra energy off. And then she
Hmm.
could come back to class and she's tired and you know, she's tired, but she a little bit more focused now because she doesn't have all this stuff going on inside of her body. It literally
Right.
looked like she was suffering from what was going on with her. That's one of the first true cases of ADHD I had seen.
Okay.
Um, the advice I would give to parents is to educate yourself on what ADHD is. Don't assume because you have a bad child or a child that's unruly or not doing what you tell them to do that they have ADHD. Um,
Okay.
Talk to your children, ask them how they're feeling, what's going on, what's causing this behavioral outburst. It's so many things that we need to do as parents before say, girl, you bad. I need to take you to the doctor.
Mhm.
That's ADHD medication is not a medication to make your child be good.
Right,
That's
right,
our job. You know what I mean? That's our job to teach them. But
right.
I think that a child that truly has ADHD or ADD will exhibit symptoms, and there's nothing you can do about it, and they'll probably be crying out for help because they can't contain that energy that they have.
Okay. My next question is the energy a bad thing? Because the diagnosis, it sounds like it's bad. It's a child that has more energy than the average child, but I'm again, I'm asking this more on the, like I said, on the other side of the line, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, in the spiritual bank realm, in
Okay.
that side for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if that child has extra energy, is it a disorder, or is it just something that, you know, I mean, it's obviously a challenge. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
obviously a challenge for that child.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't create themselves to have that energy. Where does it? Where is it? Where does it come from? Like clinically, what you're taught, how what they're teaching people, when you guys are in school, or what you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they saying that it actually comes from? And and then looking at it from the other side, like I said, is it a bad thing? Because it seems like it's a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of puts a stigma on the child. If they have extra energy, maybe it may not be a negative thing. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
negative. It seems negative because in school they want you to sit down, they want you to be still, they want you to listen, have a certain level of focus, which is
Mm-hmm.
understandable. But you know, but that might be something that's positive that child can actually use. And if that child gets on medication, I guess my concern is if
Mm-hmm.
that child gets on medication, it's almost dimming down something that they have naturally that can be a good thing.
I would say to that um is the child suffering? Is it causing
Mhm.
suffering? Everything starts in the brain.
Right.
For and I'm gonna let something be known about myself.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with studying the brains of serial killers.
Okay.
I like to know if, because there's this whole nurture and nature debate.
Hmm.
Where you nurture, did you grow up and because of your environment you're like this, or is it your
Right.
nature? Is it something in your makeup that makes you like this?
Right.
So studies show in serial killers that certain parts of their brains are smaller, and like when they die and they donate their brains to science, their parts of their brain are significantly smaller than say a person who isn't a serial killer.
Hmm.
They have certain things that light up on these tests that others don't. Um, in a child that has suffered sexual abuse, physical abuse, any kind of traumatic, their mom or dad died when they were young, any kind of tragedy puts an imprint on your brain. And there is scientific evidence that shows if, say, I was physically abused when I was young, it
Hmm.
can damage my brain and alter it to a point where when I'm older, say 9 or 10 years later, my
Hmm.
behavior starts to reflect that of when I was abused when I was younger. And it's because of this imprint on my brain. You can retrain your brain in certain areas. It takes
Hmm.
work, but you can retrain it. Um, but in children that have different mental health illnesses, some things just are, and you have to find a way to treat it. If your child, and what I want to get to is it's a real illness. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not fake or made up, because I know that's a lot of parents worry about or what
Right.
people in the Black community worry about. We worry about if certain illnesses are made up.
Hmm.
I don't, and what I've seen in children, I don't think it's made up. I feel
Okay.
like it's genuinely something that they experience, feel, and we need to be present and understand that maybe this isn't something I had to deal with in my generation,
Hmm.
but my children are dealing with. Um,
Hmm.
and so I guess if I hope I answered your question, but I do think it's in the brain. I think our brains can be altered depending on experiences we have, and I think that it's a real illness that needs to be treated, and we have to be proactive as parents, not to let the school tell us what's wrong with our kids, not to let the
Okay.
outside world, but we have to learn about it and really study and see if those are true symptoms that they're having, or if it's just like a behavior I need to pay attention to and talk them through and get to the other side of it.
Okay.
I hope that answered your
Thank
question.
you. No, yeah, no, no, no. It did. It did.
Okay.
I have so many more. I'm trying to be quiet.
Okay.
It's a good conversation. I like to, these are things I'm very interested in the brain too. I'm very interested
Yeah.
in, thought and, and patterns and things like that. So
Right.
certain thing, and again, I haven't been to school for it. So my dad, he
Mhm.
was a social worker, but
Okay.
when I think about it, a lot of my friends are social workers too. But
Yeah.
and again, I grew up in the church as well, and I'm
Okay.
into ministry and things like that. So I recognize that I recognized early that a lot of things that were separated, people try to separate those things, and some of those things, like you said, they are intertwined. I think that the medical side of it is very necessary, and I
Mhm.
think that when people who don't understand the medical side try to discredit it or almost dismiss it, it
Mhm.
it can be dangerous. As you said earlier, it can be
Yeah.
dangerous. But I'm just one that believes that along with the medical side, you also
Mhm.
need the other side as well. And
Right.
I try to figure out what those connections are. You know,
Mhm.
that's why I
And
try to sit and listen. I have so many questions. That's why.
yeah, and your spiritual connection. I don't. Again, I'm a nerd, and I read and watch a lot of stuff. So there's a study done on people of faith
Mhm.
um, when they're dying. Is it people of faith? No, it's people of faith either terminally ill or that have illnesses and
Mhm.
their outcomes versus non people of faith. And
Okay.
people people that have faith in God or a higher being
Mhm.
generally have like they get better faster or more so than a person that doesn't believe. There are
Mhm.
studies that show that your faith matters.
Mhm.
Your faith matters, your community matters, all that stuff that supports you and keeping your well-being up and keeping it good and positive, all that matters. So with mental health and faith, um, it helps you keep a positive outlook on life. It keeps giving you hope when you don't have any. People
Mhm.
in depression, they faith is something that gives them something to hold on to. It keeps them focused and going in the right direction. So faith definitely plays a part in it.
Right. Okay.
It's just keeping our, you know, we got our spiritual life, we got mental, we got physical, we got
Right.
money, we got, it's so many categories to us. But
Right.
we have to pay attention to each category and make sure we're feeding it the right way.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Mental health, I think, is very important. You know, the mind is like you said, it's your strongest muscle. If
It
your mind
is.
gone, then nothing else really matters.
You think about Alzheimer's patients, like as soon as their mind starts to wing down, your bodily functions start to go, your
Right.
memory, everything, like your brain is really powerful.
Yep. That was another question I had too. like I said, I'm trying to be quiet because Andre is being quiet over
Well,
here.
I'm here to talk. I mean,
No, go
I don't
ahead,
want
go
to
ahead.
hold it up.
No,
So
no. I mean, listen, I brought on a professional, so that's why I'm being quiet. I'm soaking it all in. So keep
right, yeah.
going. It's okay. Keep going, JD. It's all right.
Well, you mentioned Alzheimer's, right? Is there a
mhm.
way? Can you explain that a little bit? And can you explain? Is there a way to avoid it? Is there a way to avoid that, like early?
So I'm not into geriatrics. I usually work in geriatrics is working with elderly people. I
Okay,
work with elderly people now, but it's more of helping provide services so they can be comfortable in their end of life. Um,
okay,
but what I do know about Alzheimer's is you can it's vitamins, it's puzzles, it's math, it's things that keep your brain sharp. You have they teach you about like the neurons and stuff in school in your brain, your nerves,
hmm
and you
hmm
have this coating on it called the myelin sheath. And
hmm
your myelin sheath is, if you imagine like a wire and then there's a cable that goes around the wire,
okay,
that protects. So that's your myelin sheath protecting the nerve. So
okay,
when your myelin sheath starts to wear away, it starts exposing the raw nerve, and that's when it's like something is tapping against that wire,
okay,
basically, like like a rat chews at a wire, and then it starts
right.
to mess it up and break
Mess up,
something.
yeah.
Right. So that's the same with your nerves in your body. So when your myelin sheath starts to wear away, your
hmm
nerves are exposed, and then they become damaged, and that starts tinkering with the things in your head.
Okay,
Um, so that's almost like what Alzheimer's is, and that can happen in other illnesses as well.
right.
When your nerve gets damaged, you might have pain somewhere, or you might have something stop working. It's because the myelin sheath is worn away. To
Okay,
keep your myelin sheath strong, I want to say it's the omega-3 fatty acids that
okay,
helps it. But also exercising your brain, which is reading, doing puzzles a lot, that kind of stuff. Keeps your mind working and keeps growing the new healthy cells that keep protecting your brain.
okay. Is that why they say? Because when I was younger, they would say,
Mhm,
"Oh, video games is no good and this and that." But then I started hearing, video games actually were good, for kids, especially, well, mostly a lot of young boys will play video
mhm,
games,
mhm,
and I would play a lot, you know what I'm saying? I still do sometimes. I mean, I don't have as much time, obviously, as I used to, but
mhm,
I would do it, and it actually did. I felt like it did keep my mind sharp. I felt like my instinct, as far as like how fast I can react to something, it would help
mhm.
those things in my head. So I'm like,
Right.
is that something? Yeah, is that something now where people are actually saying that video games can help, along with those other things? Because they're really, video games are nothing but moving puzzles anyway, most of the time.
Right. And they do help with certain real life well, we know the bad and good of video games.
Right? Yeah,
If
exactly.
you expose yourself to certain things, it's gonna
Right.
take in, and then you may act it out or you may think it out.
Right.
um but I do agree, video games. I play video games on my phone little, and I can notice from starting. It's some game I downloaded. I saw on Facebook, but I noticed from the time I started the video game
Mhm.
and then go up some levels. I started out with one hotel. Now I have three hotels.
Okay.
But I noticed my growth. Like I'm starting out and I'm like, why can't I get this to do this? And I'm going around, and
hmm
then after I've done it about 10 times, it's like that, like, oh, now
Right.
it's time for me to get another hotel. So
Right.
it does sharpen your brain. It's just important to get our kids in front of the right stuff, even our
Yeah.
older
Right.
people in front of the right stuff that helps keep them sharp. And our elderly people really need us to
hmm
entertain them to help uh, keep their lives long. My grandmother is she turned 90 in July,
Oh wow.
and all she does is puzzles.
Okay.
All she
Okay.
does, and she's still in her right mind. She's not, she doesn't have Alzheimer's. She doesn't I don't think she don't do is drive, but she is really good, and she's 90 years old. So I
Wow.
think if we do that kind of stuff, it'll help keep us mentally sharp.
That's another thing. What, because that's something right now that's very, very like relevant in my life.
Hmm.
I have my mom and I have my mom-in-law, and
Okay.
they're both around the same age. They're like, right around 70, late
Hmm.
60s, 70. And, sometimes I know my mom, she's a little more busy. My mother-in-law, not as much anymore, but
Hmm.
what can we do? Because they're still in that stage of, they're still our elder. They're still, they still look at
Right.
us as their kids, but it's like sometimes we have to say to them, like, you need to do this or you need to do that. And it's like, how do we get them to stay busy, to do those things that you're talking about?
Right.
There's something that, that we could do to help, push them along without making them feel like we're just trying to control or, just trying to make them do something or whatever.
That's that's a good question. It reminds me because right now I have a caseload of about 40 something elderly
Wow.
people. And one thing one thing that keeps them going is family.
Mhm.
One thing that I feel like makes them go to a death early is no family.
Okay.
Um, when they're surrounded by people, that's what they talk about a lot. And if they talk about my son has never came to see me, barely calls, I have to call him, that hurts their feelings. And they might not say it to you out loud, but they'll
Okay.
tell somebody like me that
Okay.
nobody's visited them. So having somebody to keep communication with them, because a lot of them, if they live to be like 70, 80, 90 years old, their friends are dead. You know,
Right. Right.
um, people they've grown up with, their parents, sisters, and brothers, they don't have a lot of people. So us coming around and saying, "Hey, grandma, how you doing?" or "Hey, mama, what you need today?"
Right.
and listening to them talk about the news or whatever is going on in their head, just
Okay.
being there, and then engaging them in activities. Mama, I bought this card game today. You want to see if we can play it?
Okay.
Something simple. Just slip it in there, and that'll help. Because the other thing is family and community, but the other thing is maintaining their independence. They don't want to feel like they're losing independence,
Right.
and they will apologize to no ends because they're losing independence. So
Okay.
reiterating to them, it's all right, it's fine, I'm here for you. You want to talk about it, that's fine, and give us something that she can still do. You know,
Okay.
um, but not so much as trying to push them to do things that they know they probably can't do, but
Okay.
encouraging the things that they can do is health.
Shonda, you just helped me a million times. I thank you.
I'm glad.
You know
I'm
what? And
glad.
you know something? I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna do the card game thing soon. I'm
Hmm.
gonna do that. I might do that tonight, actually.
It
The
will be
card, the
cool.
card. Yeah, yeah. I didn't even think of something that simple.
Yeah.
Because they want to get out and things like, especially during COVID. COVID had everybody locked away. So what I was doing was I would just take my family out, especially when everything was kind of shut down. I would
Hmm.
just take them out. They would be out. Me and my wife would be the only ones to go out and do the shopping and things like that
Right.
because we didn't want everybody to leave the house. And we wasn't doing any ordering out or any of that. So it was rough for them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
I'm, you know, I would just take everybody on drives. I would just
Right.
drive. We're in Queens. I would just drive through Brooklyn or drive through Manhattan.
Right.
Circle around and just come back. Like that would be like our simple
Just to get
family.
out and get some air.
Yeah, just to get out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was busy as well. My wife was busy, so it wouldn't be as often, and they would be feeling like, I guess, that they're in jail or something, like they locked
Yeah,
up, they
it
can't get
felt like
out.
prison. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and they feel like when we went out, to go grocery shopping, anybody who had went grocery shopping when COVID first started, they know
Mhm.
how hectic it was and how tired you are. It's like exhausting going out. It's almost
Right.
like you feel like you went out hunting. You know what I'm saying? After
Yes.
you come from the grocery store. So
Yes.
they would feel like, oh well, you guys are out and you guys are doing this and that. And we're like, we're going out so we can bring food in for y'all. And, we're tired. But then at the same time, it's like they feel trapped. So, all
Yeah.
right. And I get it. And that was one thing that I was worried about because I started to, a lot of people got depressed over this whole COVID thing. And,
Yeah.
because they were locked away, I guess they felt like they were in some type of solitary, which, I
Mm,
mean, I guess they kind of were. And, so just trying to keep their minds like not going to that place.
that place.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Actually,
You're
that's a
welcome.
good idea. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. We had something at my house not too long ago, but we bought a Jenga game. It was like $12 at Walmart.
Okay.
And my mom played with us for the first time. She played Jenga. And she was like, "Oh my God, I like this game. I didn't
Okay.
know I was gonna like it, but I like this game." Like she perked up. She was like, "I might have to get me one." And so
Okay.
it's good for them to. And Jenga is a it take precision and thought and time because you
Yeah.
gotta know which little And
Yep.
so, but it's good for the mind and it's good for us to be together because I went to the doctor not too long ago. My doctor told me that in her 20 years of practice, she has prescribed more medicine for anxiety and depression since COVID than she has in her 20 years of practice.
Wow.
She said that everybody has a heightened awareness, anxiety. Do I want to go to the grocery store? If you go to the grocery store, do I want to touch a buggy? Do they have
Mhm.
wipes? Is
Right.
everybody gonna have a mask on? Do I feel like wearing a
Right.
mask? This mask is hot. I don't want to
Yeah.
talk in it. I don't want to
Right.
breathe. It's like so many things that you never had to think about before. So
Hmm.
COVID has definitely messed with the mental health.
Yes. Yes. It
Yeah.
has. Even and the age don't matter. It's young
Yeah.
people as well. You know.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
They are stressed too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow. So that was a lot to take in. So I'm gonna encourage everybody watching at
Yeah.
home to please listen to the replay, rewind it, fast forward it, whatever you got to do. Take notes,
Share it.
okay? Share it with
yes, definitely.
everybody.
Yes.
So I wanted to say two things. We're gonna segue into we're gonna stay on mental health, but then we're gonna segue and talk about somebody.
Mm.
But I wanted to say that in my house we do dominoes. So we do the
Mm.
dominoes.
Yeah.
My in-laws are here, so they're older. They're in their 50s, almost getting to the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing the dominoes thing and everything. I got my dog now. I lost my dog this year during
Oh.
COVID, and that
Mm-hmm.
was a hard hit.
Mm-hmm.
And imagining everybody else that had passed away. So I had this like I felt like I was going crazy. So
Yeah.
I just adopted this puppy 2 days ago. So I just feel like sometimes having an animal can help also. If you're an
They
animal
do.
lover, that can kind of help you with the mindset, especially when you're going through things in your personal life. You don't know what
Mhm.
people are going through. What I'm saying? Some people are going through, even in their marriage. Some people have the loveless marriage, and then they had to be locked away with that person for,
Forever.
Yeah, that's not funny, but
for these
it's
6
true.
months, you know. It's kind of crazy, but everybody. I think everybody has to deal with the hand that they've been dealt. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I wanted to ask you, Sharonda, about Kanye
Mm-hmm.
West. Since we're talking about mental health,
Mm-hmm.
Kanye West has been in the news. He lost his mom, and since he dealt with, people say he's dealing with bipolar disorder. I think he's been
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed with bipolar disorder. The
Mm-hmm.
first time I ever heard about bipolar disorder was on Empire. I don't know if you watch
Wow.
Empire,
Mm.
but that's the
Uh-huh.
first time I heard about it when the guy that plays Andre, was
Mm-hmm.
having the bipolar. So it's like your mind, it's like you're a different person, and then you go back to yourself or whatever. So that's what people are saying for Kanye West. He wanted to run for president. He said he was running for president. He said all these different things about slavery was a choice. It's a whole bunch of things that he said that's been sound bites. Some people say he's misunderstood. He feels like
Mm-hmm.
he's misunderstood. What are your thoughts, your professional opinion on Kanye West?
I think he is misunderstood. I think he bipolar disorder is real. So you have these extreme lows and extreme highs. And your job as a person with bipolar disorder is to manage keeping yourself balanced.
Mhm.
And when you're in an extreme high or extreme low, you need mental health care to take care of yourself because you're going to either, he's probably at one moment severely depressed. Um, And then when we see him like saying these things and he's real giddy and emotions is everywhere, he's probably on the really high part of it where he feels like he's on top of the world and
Mhm.
he can do anything he wants. And then uh, I want to say what Kim's hard job is to keep him here in the middle or whoever else is around him to
Right.
keep him in the middle. Um, People take medication for bipolar disorder because it is an illness that can make you act irrational. And people that don't understand mental illness or understand how Kanye West exhibits his mental illness leads him to be misunderstood. Because I think he's trying to still figure it out. And a problem in the Black community, because I had this problem myself with anxiety and depression when I was younger, is that we know we have a problem, but somehow we think we can fix it ourselves. And or somehow we know the antidote and we know what vitamin is going to do this. And we
Mhm.
know if we do this, but then our problem is even if that does work, we don't commit to it long enough for it to sustain us and keep us managed the way we're supposed to be managed. So I know I'm obese, but I can go vegan for 5 months. Okay, I want some meat now. I'm done. I'm done.
Right.
You know, I know I have anxiety. I'm just gonna take this long enough till I feel better. Then I'm gonna throw the pills away.
Mm.
We can't do that. If a diabetic decided I'm gonna throw my insulin away today, they could kill themselves.
Mm.
Mental health is the same way. We cannot prance around and pretend that you don't have bipolar disorder all of a sudden because you took your medication for 3 months. You can't
Mhm.
pretend that it's still there and you haven't done the work necessary to balance yourself out to fix you. So I feel like Kanye West is misunderstood because of his illness, but he also parades himself around and he's not in a position. I won't say he's not in a position because he has the resources, but he's not putting himself in a place where he can be managed. I feel like if he keeps going on different shows and he keeps doing this and doing that, I feel like he's pretending or thinking that he has it all together when he doesn't.
Mm.
Wow.
That's my opinion, Wes.
Well, I guess we have no choice, but I mean, hey, I mean, what you're saying sounds right. It sounds right. Sounds about right. And obviously, Kanye West has the money and resources,
Right,
to get the proper treatment versus, you know, the average Joe or the
Right.
average
Hmm.
right.
Karen or whoever. He has the
Right.
And just take
resources.
this into consideration too. He is a smart dude. He reads or does whatever. He knows some things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He knows some things about business because I listened to him when he came to South Carolina. I didn't go, but I listened to his speech, and I was
Mm.
like, 1 minute he's making sense because he understands corporation and how he gets shoes sold and how Nike corporations do this and how the music industry does it. He knows that. But then when it comes to politics and people, it started going every which way. And I'm like, does he even know what he's talking about right now? But in his head, I think he knows.
It's Kanye. I think Kanye is he's smart. I think Kanye's problem or his challenge has always been how to communicate. Like
Oh yeah.
he I think that the average person listening to Kanye would think that something was wrong, with him. Not that something isn't, because it was obvious something was wrong with him when his mom passed.
Mm-hmm.
His and in my opinion, he always had, which he even admitted to, like, but you could see it before he even admitted to it, that he
Mm-hmm.
had a chip on his shoulder as far as being accepted, rejection, things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
these are things that I can relate to,
Mm-hmm.
especially, when he was coming up, so many people probably told him, that he wasn't going to be anything. And he said that he created this thing in his head, which is really was arrogance, to
Mm-hmm.
cover insecurity. It's like,
Right.
all arrogance is a false confidence to cover insecurity. That's all it really
Mm-hmm.
is. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what he built with himself, but it got him to a certain place, doing that, certain level of success doing that. But I feel like
Mm-hmm.
he's always, whenever Kanye says something, he's always, it always seems strange, right? When he's saying it,
Mm-hmm.
until it happens. And then when it
Right.
happens, then people go back and they say, "Oh, well, he said that he was going to do this."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he said
Mm-hmm.
he was going to do that. It's just the way he says it. He says it almost. It's almost like if you listen to him talk, he's saying things and he's talking to people. He's not talking to people who believe in him. He's talking to people. He's talking to the naysayers before they even get a chance to naysay, in a sense.
Right.
So he's talking to
Right.
people. He's talking to the critics. So he's like, "Oh, I know I'm gonna say that I'm running for president, and I already know how people are gonna respond to this." So
Mm-hmm.
already he puts that, like, that shield of, like, you know full, like, confidence in front of him, and says, "I know what y'all are gonna say, so I'm already gonna rebuttal y'all before y'all." And it comes across
Right.
a certain way. And when he starts
Like,
talking,
what is
his
he saying?
mind, yeah, his mind is working. And if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast when he was on there, Joe Rogan
Mm-hmm.
kind of pointed out, he's like, your mind is all over the place. And he used the example of, like, Elon Musk. He compared him to Elon Musk, right? And it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. When you listen to Elon Musk talk, it almost seems like, what's going on in this dude's head? Like, he seems almost weird. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
it's because the way his mind is working, his mind has so many details. And I'm not trying to say, like, I'm a genius or nothing. I'm just saying I
Mm-hmm.
understand it because my mind works like that sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm talking, I'll start to say something, and then I'll realize, like, wait, let me go back and say this piece, because if I don't say this piece, then they're not going to understand it when I get to this part. So it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like he's talking all over the place, and really he's trying to guide you to, like, one thought, but it has so many different details that he has to explain each detail. And by the time he's done doing that, people are like, "This dude is crazy, man. Something's wrong with him." You know what I mean? And if you don't go, like, play it back and listen to it in, like,
Mm-hmm.
real close, then it's gonna sound crazy. And that's why I feel like he's misunderstood. So that, on top of his communication issue, on top of the things that he deals with emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
internally, and he's projecting that out, it makes him
It
look
makes him
crazy.
look like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
And
makes him
he
look
and
crazy.
he
And he's
does his
probably
stuff.
really dealing with depression. Like you said, he's really dealing with that.
Mhm. And I feel like, and this is my personal opinion, but
Hmm.
I feel like he does himself a disservice
Hmm.
when he gets in front of cameras and different things and talks to people without
Hmm.
understanding what you just said, that his communication doesn't come across. If I have to watch I'm not on an adventure hunt or something to find gold. So I shouldn't have
Right,
to decode the map. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right, right. I
And
understand.
it's something that should come out to people that are following him and listening to him and possibly want to vote for him. It should come out as understandable to the public.
Hmm.
But the fact that we have to decode it makes it, unless I'm in, if you're in Christianity, right, and you go to
Right,
church and you read the Bible and you study it, you understand that a person outside of Christianity might not necessarily understand and get,
right,
why do you go to church every Sunday? Why do
right,
you say worship and do this? Why do you do this? So when if Kanye had a club
right, right.
or a book, you know what I mean? It would be like, okay, I get him. But
Hmm.
because he presents himself in the manner that he does, without thinking, do these people really get me?
Hmm. Hmm.
Am I communicating my message in a way that people will understand? Because I understand it,
Hmm.
but there's no in psychology or in therapy, um, therapists will say, you'll tell me how you're feeling, and I'll say, okay, well, JD, this is what I heard you say.
Right.
You'll tell
Hmm.
me if I'm correct in hearing you.
Hmm.
There's nobody saying to Kanye, okay, Kanye, this is what I hear you saying.
Right.
And then he can say, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Instead, it's millions of people out here trying to decode Kanye's message. How do any one of us know specifically what he's saying?
Hmm.
And I compare it to um, Ice Cube's interview about um, his plan, his contract with Black America, right?
Okay.
When everybody got upset with him because they said he went to go meet with Trump.
Hmm.
So when he first introduced this plan, I had listened to him on Red Table Talk with Jada. I listened
Okay.
to him. I listened to his plan. When everybody got upset about him going to talk to Donald Trump's team, I watched the interview where he described what happened in his own words. In
Hmm.
both those instances, I was not lost on what he was doing or what he said. It
Right.
didn't confuse me. He
Right.
laid out the plan here. He said, here, this is the plan is still the same.
Hmm.
And I met with two teams and blah, blah, blah. But it was clear, it was coherent, I understood, and there was no gray line on what are you talking about?
Right.
He came forth and he said, so to me, with Kanye West, it's not clear. And
Hmm.
when he goes to try to explain himself, it don't seem too clear then either. Like, what are you doing? It's not
Right.
really easily understood, if that makes sense. So I feel like
Hmm.
I feel like there's a problem, like you said, with his communication, but I still feel like there's a problem in his way of thinking, that he thinks everybody understands already what
Right.
he has going on,
Right.
and, and he needs to come down a level to say, okay, something's not right because they still not getting. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And you know what? I agree with that, and I feel like he is his issue with him. And like I said, I don't know. I've had the pleasure of meeting Kanye, but I
Mm-hmm.
haven't. I don't know him, so I
Right.
can't say what he's thinking. But it just from what I gather, because he's not the
Mm-hmm.
only person who's like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the reason I can relate to it is because I know
Mm-hmm.
for myself a lot of times when I'm saying something,
Mm-hmm.
I get similar reactions, right? When I'm
Okay.
saying, so I can kind of a little bit, I can kind of understand where he's coming from, what
Mm-hmm.
he needs, and what you said is exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
He's not fully considering how to explain things to people, and I think, you know, in my opinion, I feel like he's in his mind, he's thinking, you know, well, they're not going to understand me. I'm going to say it to them, almost like I'm going to say it to them, and I know they're going to be confused. I know they're going to be feeling like, what
Mm-hmm.
are you talking about? And then I'm going to show them. And then when I show them, it's almost like a grand finale, like, oh, I'm going to show them. Because you got to think, in his career, throughout his career, that's what's been happening. So
Mm-hmm.
he started out trying to do beats, and he was rapping. People was telling him he can't, he shouldn't rap. He should stick to doing beats. So then
Right.
so then he was like, okay, I'm gonna show you. So he just showed people, and then they were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, you can't walk around. Nobody's gonna look at you wearing polos and backpacking and this that. And he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna show you. He tried to do it in fashion. Okay, I'm gonna show you. So that's his
Mm-hmm.
whole mo. It's like, I know people are not going to believe in me. He's already expecting people to not believe in him. And then
Mm-hmm.
he's like, well, I'm just going to show you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
been the way he's been going about it. But when he probably would get more people to support him if they did understand. But he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
take the time. And I think it's that insecurity, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who would understand if he took the time, but I think is so focused on the critics, and proving the critics wrong, that
Mm-hmm.
there's like neutral people in the middle of that who, if he took the time to explain it, properly, then people would have, could understand it. And most people, as we know, are not going to decode. Like you said, people are
Mm-hmm.
not going to decode what you're talking about. You're just going to lose
Mm-hmm.
their interest, you know.
Right.
And if what I think he needs is somebody who can understand him and then translate. Because the thing that you were
Right.
saying about what a counselor would do,
Mm-hmm.
almost like counselor 101 is like, okay, you listen
Mm-hmm.
first, and then when you repeat it, you say, this is what I'm hearing you say, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I like the Joe Rogan interview, because he allowed Kanye to speak, where
Mm-hmm.
most people would cut him off. As soon as he says something that sounds like a contradiction, he'll cut
Mm-hmm.
them off. They'll cut him off,
Right.
and then argue with him. And then now he's playing defense where he never got to finish his point. But if you let
Right.
him talk, it'll sound like he's talking in circles, but eventually he'll bring you back to the full thought. And then it'll
Mm-hmm.
it'll kind of like make sense. It's almost like you use the example of a Christian talking about the Bible. If a
Mm-hmm.
Christian's talking about the Bible to somebody who doesn't believe, it sounds like nonsense. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? It sounds like nonsense. What do you mean? If somebody doesn't believe in God or anything like that, and you're trying to
Right.
explain to them about, you know, biblical principles, loving, forgiving, loving your enemies and tithing and these type of things, people are going to be like, what are you
What
talking
is
about?
right?
So
Yeah.
you have to explain each detail. And sometimes if you're trying to explain one point, you don't have the time, or people don't have the attention span for you to explain to them why, like you said, loving your enemies. Why would I
Mm-hmm.
love my enemies? You
Right.
know how much backtracking you have to do to
Right. To
explain,
get to that.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? To
Yeah.
get to that one point. And
Right.
most people are not going to listen to that. So at that point, you just have to almost explain what you're talking about. And it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be up to them whether or not they want to decode it, And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
where he
Yeah. And one other thing
is.
about Kanye is they say it takes what 21 days to form a habit,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like you mentioned his arrogance and uh, uh, his arrogance and kind of covering up his insecurities.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And if he's been used to living his life like that, that's a habit for him.
Mm-hmm.
And if he is going to um, say a podium to speak, and
Mm-hmm.
he's you in his head, he's already decided I'm not going to be understood anyway. That's a habit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going. They're not going to know what I'm saying. So what's the use? Let me just do what I'm going to do. That's a habit.
Mm-hmm.
It's more self-serving for him. It doesn't serve everybody else that's
Mm-hmm.
that's that's listening to him. So I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like if he wants to be like a leader,
Mm-hmm.
in the aspect not just music and people listening to him for his music, but wants to be listened to as a political person, then I feel like he needs to learn how to serve other people other than himself. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And the opposite side of that, I feel like, is when a person is, say, handicapped and they have to learn how to try to fit in with normal people instead of
Right.
us trying to learn how to navigate life with them.
Right.
I feel like we have to be more empathetic toward him to
Mm-hmm.
understand him better. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a give and take situation.
I agree. I agree with that. And I'm hoping that somebody around him, like I'm actually praying for the dude. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
hope somebody around him, is able to do that because I think that a lot of people that's around him, I think that when you are, like I said, I've experienced this, myself. It's like when
Hmm.
you are trying to do something and you're
Hmm.
used to people, not used to people discouraging you because they can't
Hmm.
see the vision. And if you let those things go by, you let a couple of things go by, and you realize, there's been a lot of times where I've had the thought to do something, and the
Hmm.
people around me didn't get it, and I'll try to explain it. It'd be the same kind of Kanye situation. They wouldn't
Right.
understand, and I didn't know how to explain it to them. So it can wind up us being frustrated with each other or whatever the case, or people will
Hmm.
say, "Oh, that's not going to work," and then a year later, somebody does it, and they're making millions of dollars off of the idea, and you're
Right.
sitting there like, "Man, I listen to these people." So I think Kanye's Kanye's approach, I think, early was, okay, I have to not listen to these people, and I honestly feel like that's an insecurity. I feel like he he might feel like if I listen to someone,
Hmm.
like say
Hmm.
for example, Sharonda, he's like he comes to you, he's like, listen, I need some counsel, and
Hmm.
you're trying to talk to him, and you start explaining these things to him. The first thing he's gonna hear is probably like that first person who told him he couldn't do something, right? And so he's going to put this wall up like, okay, I can't, it's too toxic for me to listen to you tell me what I can't do
Hmm.
because if I start believing that I can't do it, then everything's going to fall apart. And I think that if he kind of was a little more secure, then he
Hmm.
could say, all right, I can at least listen to what you're saying, right? And
Right.
then take the
Right.
parts that work for me and then disregard the parts that don't work for me and still move forward. But if I listen to you, if I open up myself to listen to you and I'm not strong enough to take that criticism, you know, you because it starts to taint where you're not able to distinguish between what's harmful criticism, hateful criticism, and constructive criticism. If you can't
Right.
tell the difference between the two, then you're just going to disregard all criticism, and that can be a dangerous thing too because now you got a higher road to climb because you got to make all these mistakes, which I think is
Hmm.
what he's doing and what he's probably going to do for probably the next, like if he's talking about running for president, he's probably going to make these mistakes for the next, year and a half, 2 years before he starts to get some footing to realize, okay, maybe this is something that I need to do if people are going to take this, seriously.
Hmm.
And it may be too late. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? It may be too late because people's attention spans, are not that strong. As you see, people elected Trump. It didn't take much because this guy didn't say anything complicated. Everything he said, you was like, this is obvious nonsense what he's talking about. You know what I mean? But he still
Hmm.
won because everybody understood exactly what he was talking about. And most times
Right.
politicians they talk in circles or they give you this one tagline that you can digest. And as long as they give you something that's digestible, then people are like, okay, I'm gonna go with that guy. You know what I mean? Because it's like a simple thing. So if you come with two people with something more complicated, most people are not understanding all of the policies that these politicians are talking about.
Right.
They don't understand those policies. They don't understand the law. They don't even know the law to make a
Right.
real rational decision. They just say Democrat, Republican, or none of the
Sounds like you
above. Or,
benefit.
you know,
Right. Right.
and
Yeah.
to me. I feel like that's dangerous too.
It's a the politics thing. That's a dirty game.
Hmm.
That's a dirty game, and I have tried my best to try to understand it as much as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we don't know the laws. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know this 100,000 stack of paper that's at Congress that they writing a
Mm-hmm.
new law every year, every couple months, a new statute, a new amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like as much as you can get informed and
Right.
pay attention to what's going on. One thing I spoke to my husband about was being able to feel the ramifications of a president or an elected official here where I am.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about tax breaks or they talk about different things. One thing I know I can feel is the lack of police reform, and
Mm-hmm.
the I can feel that on the ground because I have sons, and my son will come home and say, "Oh, mama, I was walking with a backpack and I seen a police drive by, and it scared me because I was like, I hope he don't stop me."
Mm-hmm.
That's trauma. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
Right.
we've heard things, and so I know that affects me on the ground. And
Mm-hmm.
so then I'm probably going to make a choice based on who is going to help at least with a situation that I don't have power singly to help with, if singly is a word.
Right. I
I
understand.
don't have I don't have the power myself to do it on my own, but I know that if I get the right politician, if I try it, then maybe that person can form a bill or a law that will benefit my child when he walks to the store. He's not going to be scared, or
Mm-hmm.
at least he can have something that protects him on paper that says, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will not have immunity. If you
Right.
kill this
Right.
kid, you're not going to get off scot free. That
Right.
we need people that's going to do that, and Trump ain't that person.
Right.
He's a law and
I
order president. He said that himself.
right. Truthfully,
But
truthfully, I don't think either one. I don't think either one of them are going to do it. Nobody's done it yet. Not nobody. Nobody
you
has
don't
done it
have
yet.
any faith in it.
Yeah. No, I don't.
I'm trying.
I
I'm
don't.
trying to. I'm trying to keep hope alive, only because I know that in the past there were probably people didn't have faith that slaves would be free, but they got free, or
Mm-hmm.
if black people would be able to vote, but they got the right to vote. If we would have any kind of housing or jobs other than maids and washing clothes, but we got there. So I have to keep faith that somehow through, I don't know if it's through the protest or if it's through somebody writing a law, but it'll happen. I don't know if
Right.
Joe Biden and Kamala can do it, but we're gonna pressure them to do it.
I think that a lot of when it comes to politics, I'm not a big politics person.
Yeah.
I'm a practical person. I'm
Hmm.
obviously a spiritual person, but I'm a practical person. So
Hmm.
I like instead of me, I'm one of those people who like the bones. You know what I mean? Like give me like the meat and the bones. I don't need the presentation. I don't need the extra sauce.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just give me like so to me, I look at what people say. Like I said, we can see the reason why Trump won the last election, even though it was stolen. I could see, because the people that he was talking to, or not why he won, but why he has any type of support, is because
Hmm.
that the people that he's speaking to, they resonate with him, and it's the same exact thing that you just said. Why you would vote for a person is that the
Hmm.
issues that concern you personally, they're speaking to, right? But these politicians, this is what they always do. They speak to
Hmm.
the issues of the people who they want to vote for them. But
Hmm.
as you notice, in New York, there's always construction. Like right now, there's all type of construction going on. There's all type of stuff happening. They
Hmm.
come by and they start cleaning up and cutting the surrounding areas, the grass, places where garbage and all this stuff was laying around the
Right.
whole for the last 3 years, 3.5 years. All of a sudden, it's getting cleaned up. It's like these people come around every time there's an election, and then they do things, and then people just say, oh, well, you know, they're doing something, see, and it's like, but do you realize that as soon as they get elected, it's going to be, it's going to go back to normal. And that's why I couldn't blame Ice Cube, and people are mad at Ice Cube for talking to the Trump administration. But I'm like, the Biden administration told him that we'll speak after the election. You have no leverage after the election. So what, after the election, you can shun me, you can duck me, you can, so don't act like you're for me so you can get what you want out of me. And then there's no way to hold you accountable after the fact. So I feel like, that's where I have a problem. Now, I'm not saying, I jokingly said I was going to write Kanye on my ballot this time
Mm-hmm.
and vote for him. But, to be honest, I don't think Kanye is ready to be a president. But some of the ideas that he was talking about, I agree with. Because, like I said, it's about getting back to basics. These guys
Mm-hmm.
are playing the same old politics. It's wrestling with them. It's almost like I'm watching, the Beef DVD a hip hop
Right.
DVD or like a hip hop battle or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Right.
it's like a waste of, to me, I feel like it's a waste of time. And I feel like there's real issues that you know, need to be addressed. And I think that a lot of people use it. Well, I think Black people, particularly in this country,
Mm-hmm.
we use a lot of emotional politics. Like, we respond to emotion a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times,
Mm-hmm.
not to the bones and the actual things that matter. Not that
Mm-hmm.
the things, they matter, but we have to take emotion out of it sometimes and see, like, what we're actually going to do about things. So to me, I feel like when people look at Kanye and they say, oh, well, what is he talking about? It's an easy way to get fooled into voting for the wrong person, because all they have to do is strum on that emotional string. And Black people wear our emotions on our sleeve, so they know exactly what strings to pull every single time. So they do it every single time, and then we go and we vote the same way every single time, and then we get the same results, and then we're mad and we're talking about, oh, these people, these pilots. Watch, I give it 6 months. No matter who wins, I give it 6 months. The only way, I really hope that Biden wins. I hope that Biden wins so bad. I hope that he wins just so that people can be quiet. Because when Biden wins and nothing changes, then it's going to be like, now what? Now, if Trump wins, it's going to be an excuse for Black people to walk around in this country and act like, whoa, it's because y'all didn't vote. It's because not enough people voted. How do you know? How do you know how many people voted? You don't know how many people voted. You don't have those papers. You understand what I'm saying? But it's going to be an excuse to say, well, look, this guy's in office, so that's why this is happening, or that's why this is not happening. No. What happened? Obama was in office too. Biden was in office already for 4 years. So what is he going to do now? So what is he going to say? Is he going to come save the day now? Then it's going to be, well, then it was the Black guy's fault because Biden was in the background and Obama was holding him back. What, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's really going to change? This guy had 4 years to make changes. What was happening then?
He actually had 8, right? Because they did 2
He had
terms.
8, exactly. Thank you for the correction. He had 8 years. So if
Mm-hmm.
things are still not good now, right? What's going to happen in the next 4 years? What is he going to change in the next 4 years? First of all, we're not even going to feel, and nobody talks about this, but we're not even going to feel the effects of the last. We don't feel the effects of the presidency of a president's term until the next term. You're not even going to feel the effects of it until the next term. So any president that comes in office in their first term and tries to act like the things that are happening is because of them, wrong. Because things don't happen that fast. Even when policies change, it takes a while for it to like really start rolling for real for the masses to see it. You know what I'm saying? Most of the people don't even know what they're being affected by. They just vote, and then people are not even going to think about what's going on in politics until the next time it's time to vote. So they voted, and all of this things that they doing and saying. So to me, I just feel like, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody from voting. I think that it's very, fine, do it. But this is JD's opinion, right? So I just feel like if we're really going to make a change, it has to start with us, and we have to actually know what we want to change. We need to stop screaming change and actually find out what we want to change, even down to the details. Okay, police reform. What do we want? We could say, oh, we want police to stop killing us. Okay, that's obvious. How do we want police? How are we trying to get police to stop doing this? What are the things? What are the terms? And then who's holding this? Who's gonna hold them accountable? Because it's obviously not gonna be the people that's casting that ballot. It's not gonna be us. So who's gonna hold them accountable? Who do we go to? They can't hold themselves accountable. They're not doing that. So anyway, that's my opinion. Sorry, I
So
know I went over on
let me
the
tell
10.
you, you just went on a whole real rant,
I know,
right?
I know.
But I understand your concerns, and I can't say these ain't thoughts and concerns I done had before too. You
Right,
know what I
right.
mean? Um, but I think I have shifted over the years from fussing about it,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people will dispute what Obama did or didn't do.
Right,
I don't get into the I don't what he did or didn't do. I
right,
don't think I care much. I'm gonna tell you the truth. What
right, right.
I did learn from him was it was a speech he gave. Um, I don't remember when, but he gave a speech, and in that speech, he said it was gonna start in the grassroots. Whatever we needed
Mm-hmm.
done was in grassroots.
Right.
And I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like whatever other movements that sparked around the entire world,
Mm-hmm.
that's us creating change and holding politicians accountable. I don't think that we're sitting back doing nothing. I think we're doing more than we give ourselves credit for. And I feel like we as Black people have to start counting our do's and not our don'ts, or we have to start counting our blessings and not our curses, because we
Mm-hmm.
know everything that's against us already. We know what
Mm-hmm.
the system is built like. We know what the foundation of this land was built on. We already know all of this. We've been
Right.
entrenched in this for forever.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so right here and right now, we gotta start talking solution based so
Thank you.
that the questions that you ask have answers. How
Mm-hmm.
do I feel like the contract with Black America um, is an answer. And if we all looked at that contract and we presented it to the Black Caucus because they're supposed to be for us, if we presented it
Right.
to NAACP, they're supposed to be for us, whatever other organization, and what is her name, Tamika Mallory, and
Mm-hmm.
all these other people that hold these positions and they're in the political arena, present
Mm-hmm.
it to them. Go to the White House, go to these hearings, go to whatever it is. It's got to start somewhere, and it's got to build up to the top. But if we just complain and then don't make a move in any area, then
Right.
and this is the way I put it. Somebody might not be a voter, but they might be a
Mm-hmm.
protester.
Right.
Or they might not be a voter, but they might know how to organize and get things done. So I don't knock anybody's
Mm-hmm.
position. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you don't feel like you got faith in the voting system, that's just your business. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Yep.
I feel like we need to be doing something that creates solutions versus us saying, what are they gonna do for us anyway? You know what I mean? Because
I agree.
because the truth is, um, the government, the same government that enslaved us, had to write something to release us, right?
Right.
And not until we raised enough heck about that was it done. Not until blood was shed was it done. So we have to look at what our voices and what our votes and what our work is doing versus what it's not doing. Because I feel like Black people are the hardest on themselves, and we're not even this hard on the white people or the white supremacists or the people that
Right.
are in power and doing the injustice to us. We're blaming ourselves and we're the victim of the injustice, but we're blaming ourselves for having, we're in America, we're part of the system. We got to figure out how to work it in our favor, you know. So I
Right.
don't think it's on us necessarily to worry about um what they're doing at the top. I think it's on us to do the work to make sure that the people at the top know we here and we showing up, and you got to answer to us just like you answer to everybody else.
I agree with the fact that we need to actually do something. Like that's what I
Mm-hmm,
mean by I'm about the bones. Like, and that's the reason I don't have. I mean, that's part of the reason I don't have faith in the voting system because of the way
mm-hmm,
that it's set up or whatever.
mm-hmm.
But I feel like that. I feel like the solutions are the things that we're missing. And I say this all the time. I'm so tired of seeing these rallies and all these things. I mean, it's nothing wrong with it, but it's like we already know the problem. Why am I coming to a rally for you to tell me all the problems that I already know? We live through these problems. You understand what
Because
I'm
they
saying?
ain't
Like,
hear, yeah, but they ain't
yeah,
hearing it. You got to
yeah,
make
like,
enough noise until they hear it.
well, it's not, but that's what I'm saying. It's not, we're not the ones that need to hear the problem.
Oh
You know
no,
what I'm
no,
saying?
no. I know
It's them.
that.
Like, we're the ones at the rally. I mean, for the first time though, you see a lot of white people rallying and
They
protesting and
need to be,
whatever.
yes.
And and you know what? I can't say the first time. The first time in my generation, I'll say, because
Uh-huh.
there were a lot of people marching, white people marching with Dr. King and
Right.
those guys as well, which is really what affects change and I say again all the time that we as black people in this country, and I mean black people products of slavery
Mm-hmm.
in this country, I feel like we need those allies.
Mm-hmm.
We need those allies because those are the people who are going to help us affect change in a
Mm-hmm.
sense because they have the ear. We we I'm down for anybody who has a solution that makes sense to me. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, and most of the time I don't really hear that. It's great when people have, it's great that people are doing something. I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody should do something. Like me, I started on my block. I had gave this example before. I started on my own block, right? Certain things that I want to see change in, I feel like it starts with you, then it starts in your household, then your block, then your neighborhood, and etc. And it expands out. I think where there's a lot of miscommunication is about what people actually want. And I want to study this this contract that Ice Cube had a little more. I can't
Mm-hmm.
speak on it too much because I don't know too much about it. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to study that contract because if it says the right things, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to support it so that we can get
Yeah.
that. Because for the first time, I feel like for the first time in my knowledge, right? For the first time in my knowledge is the first time somebody has come with actual clear demands about
They say
what
Claude
they want.
Anderson has a plan as well, and somebody else. But there have
Okay.
been plans before Ice um it's just a mass
What happened?
understanding of what that plan is, and
Mhm.
us all knowing, because I think that's part of the problem with black people in politics. If we know that we're suffering from discrimination in
Mhm.
workplace and jobs and health, we know all of this, and we've been fighting for rights and different things of this nature. The country knows, the
Mhm.
government knows, because they run the statistics. They know
Right.
that we're suffering from discrimination. It's the part on uh, government also to make sure that we're all being, when it's an institution,
Mhm.
we all should there should be laws in place that we're all treated fairly or equally in a sense, and it shouldn't be a disparity. Why is there a disparity? Why is there something blocking me from getting health coverage that a white lady gets? Or why is a doctor
Mhm.
treating me different because I'm a black lady versus a white lady? Those
Mhm.
are questions that need to be answered and gaps that need to be filled. And particularly for Black people, we always include Hispanics, and no shade to Hispanics, but
Right.
in Q's plan, he specifically is talking about Black people as descendants of slaves, not Hispanics,
Right.
not LGBTQ, not all these
Right.
other isms, but us specifically,
Mm-hmm.
because we suffered, and Native Americans suffered
Yeah.
from
Mm-hmm.
this government, but they got something
Mm-hmm.
also from this
Mm-hmm.
government.
Mm-hmm.
And what else was paid out? It was something else I'm thinking about. I can't remember right now.
Probably the
But
Holocaust.
the Holocaust, but I want to say it's something else. I don't know if it was the Asians or something
Oh,
else. But
I think it was the Indians
maybe.
got paid too.
No, she said
but
the
they
natives, but I think
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure, but I think so.
uh-huh. But they've all received some kind of recompense for what they've been through, and we
Mm-hmm.
are the only ones that they continue to like disregard. Like, oh, you're getting housing, or you're getting this. You got,
Mm-hmm.
this and that, and they refuse to acknowledge that they continue to operate under a racist system. They
Mm-hmm.
refuse to acknowledge that. I feel like that's the stuff we got to focus on. And I feel like, and I do know that there are other plans out there, but coming together with understanding and knowing that there's a plan. And I feel like we as African American people are miseducated and uneducated in knowing what our, from King to X to James Baldwin, like all these people, I think we're uneducated in knowing exactly the work that they did in terms of changing law and changing
Mm-hmm.
policy on our behalf. I think
You're right.
it's educated on that, or we don't know, and then we don't know what Clark Anderson and John Henrik Clark and all these, like, we don't know what they did. So
Right.
now we're like, what do we do? And
Right. Right. You're right.
and the
You're right.
history's been lost. There's a gap in between there. We don't know what
You're
they
right.
did. And because we don't know what they did, now we're angry because we're like, why y'all keep doing all this and ain't nobody doing nothing? But in
Right.
truth, somebody did do something. Maybe it
Right.
didn't work the first time, or it didn't go through the first time, or it met opposition, but somebody was doing something. I think we've been doing something all along. It's just not acknowledged, and it's not in the forefront. Um,
True,
because
and
for
it
Black
hasn't.
people,
And it hasn't. It's You're right, and a part of that is because it hasn't fully worked. Because every time there's something that happens, there's always and there's always before it seems like before anything is released that's being fought for is
mm-hmm,
given, there's always already a plan in place to counteract it. So it's like, oh yeah, fine, you can be free, but you can be free and poor. Like you have nothing to be able to build on. So it's like, well, we're kind of still in the same place because now, I mean, only difference is now you have to pay me, but you don't have to pay me that much. I'm not a slave, but I'm basically still a slave. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm,
So it's like,
mm-hmm.
what is always something else in place. How do we avoid that? And I think the only way to do that, like you said, is to look at the history and to be educated,
Yeah,
on those things. Because I'm sure there's a lot of things that we don't know, but
yeah,
to answer those specific questions, like you had mentioned, going to the doctor. Why, as a Black woman, are you being treated differently than by a physician than a white
mm-hmm,
woman, right?
mm-hmm,
And we know the answers to that. There's a very simply complicated answer to that
mm-hmm.
question. But we know what it is. We know what the root of it is. The question is, how do we stop it? How do we force? Because going and saying this is wrong, you know what I'm saying? You're treating me different from her. See, I can prove it. It's like, okay, so you can prove it. Now what? You know what I mean? Like,
Restart.
how do we make this doctor treat you differently from, I mean, treat you the same as they would treat this white lady, and that's the
I,
answer we need. That's the solution we
my
need. But
my solution. I'm gonna tell you my solution.
uh,
my solution is we don't we don't go to the one that doesn't treat us right. We go to the one that looks like me and looks like
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And we make it to where we build us our own network. And like we've already started doing, we're starting to ask, where's a black owned restaurant? Where's a black owned
Right.
dentist? Where's the black owned doctor, pediatrician? We start looking for them. Then they're in high demand. We need them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, an organization called National Alliance in Mental Health, Mental
Mm-hmm.
Illness. Um, I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Black Tapestry, and Black Tapestry is geared toward Black and Moorish people, and
Okay.
we focus on financial literacy, physical health, mental health, collectivism, and we partner with NAMI, which is the National Alliance in Mental Illness,
Okay.
to bring more support groups to Black communities.
Okay.
Because NAMI serves all the United States, but here in South Carolina, I want to say there's very few, I can't remember the number, but very few Black people on the board of NAMI. And NAMI
Mm.
recognized that they have a problem. And so they are reaching out to Black communities to get more Black board members and to get people to host, Black people to host support groups, mental health support groups in these different
Okay.
communities. So I think that if we started, like you mentioned, allies, if we started working with
Mhm.
allies that really want to
Right.
help us, um, and we start teaching our children again to get into these fields, or us ourselves, if we are still of age, get into these
Mhm.
fields where it benefits us, we can start building our network, and then that'll just take the money right out of their hands. And
Right.
they won't like
Right.
that. You know what I
Right. Not
mean?
at all.
And
Not at
so,
all. But
yeah,
and me and a friend of mine were discussing that, and you know what? I'm not even, to be honest, and it's sad that we have to do this. I'm not even
yeah,
going to discuss it on here because, like I
uh-huh,
Say
said,
it, say it, say
what
it.
nah, I can't, because what happens is what black people do a lot of times, like I said on another show, what we do, I feel like, sorry, I didn't say on the show. It was another conversation I was having
mm-hmm,
with a group of us, but we were discussing this, and I said, I feel like somebody disagreed with me, but I said I feel like we are naturally communal, and I feel like we love to share information. I think it's just something innate where when there's something that can help the community grow, I feel like, we help. It's kind of like what the natives did when the pilgrims came. They were like, "Oh, you guys don't know how to eat. Well, let us show you how to feed yourselves.
mm-hmm,
Here's something that you can eat right now, but we're going to show you how we did this." And then what happens is they find out what we do, and then they steal it and destroy us and take it. So I'm like, nah, I'm not going to share that. You know what I'm saying? Because all that's
right,
going to happen is they're just going to put something in place, which they already have, to stop it. They just put it in place before we actually had the knowledge to know how to build wealth. And that's what happened in this
mm-hmm,
country. We got released from slavery. That's why those 40 acres and a mule never came, because that was the basis of building wealth at first.
right,
And so if they took that from us and we didn't really realize, well, they didn't realize that at the time, I'm assuming. You know what I'm saying? That's what that's what it took. Or maybe they did, but they just didn't. What else could they do? I mean, they just, the mentalities at the time wasn't, well, we're gonna take our 40 acres and a mule. Like, they were just like, okay, well, we're free at least, and they took that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like that pattern of like these little wins. It's like it is great. It was a major thing for us to have a first black president in this country. That's great. I'm not taking anything away from that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean it didn't stop certain things from happening. Obama was one person. He's not walking through the streets of Chicago as one man like Superman, or saving the streets of South Jamaica, Queens. Like, it's not. He can't do it by himself. It has to be the people that's in those neighborhoods. All he could do
right,
is spark it, try to create, legislation and things in place to help it. But it starts ultimately with the people, the grassroots thing. And that's what I liked
mm-hmm,
about what he said. He was like,
yeah,
his whole thing was, it's time for a change. But he would say the change starts with you. Like, you are
right,
the change. You have to be the
right,
change. And that was the
yeah.
best thing he ever could have said. And,
That's what I
I
thought too.
feel,
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like with us, it's almost like we know what to do. It's not. It's There's a lot of people who know what to do. It's just, and it bugs me when I hear people say, well, black people don't want to do X, Y, and Z, or black people don't want to, better themselves and this and that. But it's like, I don't need, and our approach is usually, oh, you guys are not giving us this, government give us this, give us this, give us this. It's like, look, I don't need you to give me anything. I'll get it myself. Just take your foot off my neck so I can go get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop blocking me. Stop putting the things away. But you know that if you don't do that, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like somebody who wants to, if you know that this person is faster than you in a foot race, then you're gonna make all the rules. Then you're gonna make the rules to say, hey, you have to race barefoot.
Right.
Yeah, like, well, I can wear shoes, but you have to race barefoot. Like, okay, you're giving me this disadvantage, and sometimes I still whoop you, even barefoot. I still whoop you. I still beat you barefoot. But sometimes I'm gonna lose that race or come in at a close second because you taking the shoes away. And I'm not gonna complain. I'm not gonna keep complaining about not having shoes. What we do is we adapt. We eventually stop complaining about not being able to wear shoes, and we just get faster barefoot. You know what I'm saying? So now what you did was they literally breeded us like animals during slavery. So you took the strongest of the women and the strongest of the men and you breeded them. And then you made stronger children. And this continued to multiply and multiply and multiply and multiply. And here we are now. We're like almost the strongest breed of human because we were bred to be strong, but we were bred to be strong but controlled, right? But now the weakest part of us is our mentality because that's the part they destroy. And talking about mental health, that is, I think, the biggest mental health issue in existence right now because of what they did, mentally to us and to our mentalities that we're still trying to come out of, to be honest with you. But physically, we're very strong. Even mentally, we're very strong. We just don't know our strength. You know what I'm saying? So if you're controlling the strongest, thing, and then all of a sudden that thing is free and you can't control it anymore, now that thing becomes a threat. So the best thing you have going for you is for that thing not to know how strong it is. Because as soon as it knows how strong it is, it's going to realize that it doesn't have to take anything that you do to it because it can beat you. And that's where we are right now. So they have to continue to try to make us not know how strong we are, because as soon as a people, as a whole, we really know how strong we are, it's a wrap. But instead, we keep battling each other and going in the same circles about why we don't have shoes, why we can't race with shoes on, give us shoes. No, I'm just going to beat you without the shoes. Just let me in the race. Please let me in the race. Just let me in the race. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't stop tying my hands. And that's the thing. That's the only recourse right now, is for them to tie our hands. So the only way to get our hands untied is to have that financial stability that we need as a people. And the people who have some type of financial stability, has been able to build wealth, be willing to risk yourself and that wealth to be able to spread that to your people, and so that we could all have that ground to stand on. In the meantime, still educate, because you can't give somebody who's uneducated all of this financial freedom, because all they're going to do is hand it right back to the oppressor, which is what we've been doing. You know what I'm saying? We can look at the clothes we have on right now. And I'm guilty. I'm guilty like 3 times on my body right now alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just went out and I'm wearing some brand new Hanes socks right now. I went out and bought them. And I'm sure there's somebody who can, there's a black person who makes socks. I just didn't, I'm too lazy to figure it out. Oh, it didn't come on the commercial? Okay, well, then I don't know about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, it wasn't advertised to me 50 times a day? Oh, then I don't know about it. But Hanes is right there when I walk into Walmart. So, hey, I'll just grab the Hanes. You know what I
And
mean? And that's where we are.
yeah, it's that conditioning too, like you talk about the mental health aspect of it. It's conditioning. It's
Yeah.
And you might be familiar with Joy. Is it Joy DeGruy? She
Mm.
talks about the post-traumatic slave syndrome
Okay.
and how we're just passing down trauma from each generation to each generation. And it is true in psychology that if I endured a trauma and it altered a gene in me, it
Hmm.
can be passed down to my kid, and my kid can start exhibiting not the not the trauma, but the say she pops up with anxiety. Never
Hmm.
had
Hmm.
an abuse, never had a rape, never had a tragic accident, but she's just really anxious all the time.
Hmm.
I morphed that gene when I was abused, and then I passed
Wow.
it to my kid.
Wow.
So slavery, in my opinion, has done that to all of us, all of
Hmm.
America. I mean, black, white, whatever you are. I mean,
Right.
everybody.
Right.
Um,
Right.
on the white people's end, it's totally different because they're in complete denial of
Right.
what's happening around them. So they got that cognitive dissonance, they call it.
Hmm.
You separate your worlds, you know. I'm really here and it's nice and lovely. And when something tragic happens and I tell you you being racist, you're like, no, that couldn't be me. That's not me.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Um, but and then on the other end, we're enduring the trauma of it, and it's repeated trauma because now we're seeing they saw slavery then, they saw Jim Crow next, they saw voter suppression and Ku Klux Klan and lynchings, and then we're seeing police killings um,
Right.
all over the place. You know what I mean? Like it's repeated trauma over and over again.
Right.
And
Right.
we have to practice self-care, basically. We have to practice self-care more often than I think we practice it.
Yeah.
We
Right.
need to
Right.
practice, we need to talk about this in our families. We need to um, see a therapist if we have to. And we need to process this information and tell people what we're feeling, and then we need to figure out a way in our minds to healthily deal with it. Because acting out of
Mhm.
anger or doing other things is can get us in more trouble or lead us on a PR. So we have to figure out ways to deal with it. But it's all of that, all of what you discuss, all of what you feel, it's all part of our mental health. It's all part of
Mhm.
it. And if you can find Joy, I can send Andre the link. It's she is
Okay.
real good at it. Um, but I think we all suffer from it.
All right. All
Yeah,
right.
I can believe that. Is there a way to that trauma that you spoke about? And this is my last question, I think. The trauma you spoke about. Is there a way to? Is there a way, or how were you taught to show people how to deal with that? Like, is it a way to cure it or reverse it or whatever, so that if I'm aware of it, and or if a person who's aware of it and they don't have children yet, right? Is there a way to correct that so that it doesn't pass down to their children, or is it like something that's already there that you can't really, it's like a one of those things that you can't really reverse because it's so embedded?
It was something I recently read that said racism was like grief,
Okay.
that you can go 2 months, you can go 3 years. You lost somebody, you cry, you go through the grief, and then you can go 3, 4, 5 months or 2 years without feeling it. You
Hmm.
kind of got used to it. I realized they're gone. I'm working through this, and then boom, you smell a smell, you see somebody, you hear a voice, a memory comes back, and you crying all over again.
Hmm.
Because you miss them so much. And racism is like that in that you're living your life, you're doing fine, you're coping, you're going about your life, and then an incident happens. Say you caught a video online, or a person just yelled a racial slur at you at the stoplight, and then
Right.
boom, you're triggered back into wait, and it
Right.
causes you to kind of be confused because you're like, I've been cool and free and all this time, and then boom,
Right.
this happened, and it makes you realize the place that you're in. Um, the positive that you can take from that is if you process it, then you learn how to manage your emotions, manage your feelings, and heal from it from the inside. Meaning, um, somebody just yelled something at me. Well, one, it ain't my fault. Two, it ain't got nothing to do with me. That's how I process a lot of stuff.
Okay. Okay.
that's
Okay.
that's your feeling. That's how you think. It ain't got nothing to do with me. It don't
Okay.
mean that's where I am just because that's how you feel about it. You know what I mean? It doesn't. If it's a truth, like what's a truth? Uh, this table is the table I'm sitting at is brown. That's a truth. That's not
Right.
changeable. So that's what I know. That's what it is. But if this table somehow yelled at me, "You N word,"
Right.
where'd you get that from? That's
Right.
not
Okay.
me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's not me. So that's on it. It ain't got nothing to do with me. And I separate myself from the person and their feelings versus how I'm involved in it. It ain't got nothing to
Okay.
do with me. So I don't take it personal.
Gotcha.
I look at it as she got a problem. She need to get that fixed. You know what I mean? She need to
Okay.
work on that. They ain't got nothing to do with me. And I'm not saying it don't make me angry when I first hear it, because
Right.
it comes in and you gotta filter it. Like my filter says that girl got a problem and it ain't
Mhm.
got nothing to do with me. And then I can keep it moving, you know. But in the way we handle our trauma now is the way we will pass it to our kids. So if we can start to learn how to handle it, how to process it, get help if we need to get help, it won't damage our kids in the way that it did us. And it's like breaking the cycle. We talk about in church breaking cycles or breaking
Yeah.
generational curses. You got
Right.
to do something different. You can't approach things the same way you've been approaching it. That's how you change those. When I talked about your nerves and growing your myelin sheath in Alzheimer's patients, because you got to
Okay.
keep the brain active, right? So in the same way with trauma, you have to address it and reprogram or correct the behavior. And when you
Gotcha.
change your behavior, then you don't pass the trauma down because you break the cycle when you change your behavior. So I can't cry and complain. Oh, she called me the N word and I'm gonna beat her up and I'm gonna blah 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 and
Right.
take it personal every single time because my kid gonna do the same thing.
Right. Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
you have to change it, and you have to internally tell yourself, I'm strong. Black is not weak. Black is not this. And I don't practice what black is not. I practice what black is.
Is right.
So black is good. Black is smart. Black is great. Black is wonderful. Black is
Right.
magic. Black is all things encompassed in the universe. This is stuff I tell myself. And then there was also something I read that said when racism or microaggressions approach you, don't shrink yourself in the face of it. Be your full black self in the face of it. Bring all of you, bring all of you to it. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? So if it comes to you, don't shrink, because then when you shrink, it's like I'm less than. You take on the thing that they're bringing to you. Don't shrink. Bounce that stuff off of you.
Right.
And you stand up and you say, okay, and in all my full blackness, you ain't finna treat me like, you know what
Right.
I'm saying? This don't fly over here. I'm human just like you. And,
Right.
and, and you have to teach
What?
people how to treat you. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
So
you're
I
right.
hope that answered. I hope that answered because I know I was a little bit all over the place. So I
No,
hope
no,
that
no,
answered.
no,
Guys, I'm
no,
doing a
no. That was good.
show.
That was good because I was
Hannah,
gonna. That
come,
was
come.
gonna. You actually asked my answered my follow up, which was how. So you
Okay.
kind of answered that. I appreciate it. This actually has been real good for me because sometimes the way that I deal with things, I try
Mhm.
to you know not uh not to respond that way. Sometimes it's hard. So I
Yeah.
guess it's just practice. You know what I mean? I guess it's practice and
And
you
it's
know
okay to respond. It's just, how you respond.
right.
And take like one thing I learned from a life coach is because I get really emotional really fast when I'm heated. Like it just comes
Hmm.
out. So
Hmm.
I know that I'm going to go there. So I learned from a life coach, you take a deep breath before you release your thought because it allows you time to clear your head and articulate what you got to say. And
Hmm.
so if somebody approaches you, it was a lady, I got one of those microaggressions. It was a
Okay.
lady at a grocery store, and I was walking to my car or something, and she said, "Were you trying to get in my car?"
What?
And it hit me like,
Right.
and I just stood there, and
That
I
must
was
have been a
like,
Karen, huh?
Uh-huh.
oh, you know. And I said, "Excuse me."
Hmm.
And when she saw my face and showing up,
Right.
she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were doing. I'm sorry." She started apologizing, like she started
Uh-huh.
to back off.
Drink. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so I knew it. Like, and that you have to show up and you have to take up for yourself, but you just have to do it in a dignified way. You still
Hmm.
carry the crown, so to speak.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Then that's the hard part. That's the hard part
yeah. Because
is
you won't
carrying the
fight.
crown.
Because I
Because
wanted to
I
fight.
take my crown all the way off. Like what say it
Yeah,
again? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
but I'm learning that when you are able to do it for myself, I'm learning that when I'm able to do it, I feel better. Like when I'm able to not respond aggressively. And it's funny because black people have this reputation of being quote unquote aggressive,
Right.
and I'm like, I don't think that we're aggressive. I think we're just real. I see this passive aggressive, I see more, and again, I'm not trying to like down white people or nothing like that, or just generalize. We're speaking in general
Hmm.
terms, but
Hmm.
it's like in general, usually you would see in a corporate, in the corporate world, white people, they'll do these passive aggressive kind of shade. They
Hmm.
have a way of like being really like disrespectful with a smile, if that makes
Yeah,
any sense. And
I
I'm like,
understand.
yeah, and I'm like, we're normally not like that, so we're not gonna dance. They'll dance around each other, like yeah, this, and there'll be comments back and forth, and you know that it's aggressive, but it's like
Hmm.
passive aggressive. They're just doing this dance. Where black people, we generally are not like that.
Tell you
It's like,
straight up, like I'm not
yeah,
playing
like
with
you
you.
say something to me, it's like, what'd you say? Like this is,
Right.
I know what you're trying to say, and then they'll back off. Oh no, I didn't
Hmm.
say that. You're overreacting. Look, and my stance is like, listen, I don't care what you say or what these other people think. You know what you meant. I know what you meant. So when it happens to you, you're gonna know why, and you're the only person that needs to know why. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So these people, I don't care if they think I'm crazy. You know that what you did.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
and so we get this reputation of being aggressive. I just feel like, we're being real, but as Chappelle said, sometimes keeping the real can go wrong. So you gotta know, you know what I'm saying? Like how you said, I like that, to keep the crown. I'm gonna think of
Yeah.
that. That's gonna help me actually. In my next
Good.
thing,
Good.
I'm gonna just tell myself, Jay, keep the crown, Jay. Keep the
Keep the
crown.
crown. Yeah.
Thank you. That helped.
You will. You will.
Wow, man. There's so much that was said, and I had some thoughts, but then you would keep talking, JD, and everything that I was
My
gonna
bad.
say. No, it's
Oh.
good. It's good because certain things I wanted to say you already said. So Sharhonda was able to answer my questions also, and
Good.
we definitely have to have you back. Can you believe we were on for 2 hours?
Yes. No,
I
this is
can't
a great
believe it,
conversation.
but it was good. It was really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. You
Yeah.
know,
It's,
like,
I didn't even hit on half of what I had over here on the spot. And didn't even hit on half of that.
well, you
We
know
need
what?
a part two.
Yeah, I was just about to say we got to bring you back for part two.
Well, I would
Definitely.
love it.
Yes. All right. Well, we've been here for 2 hours, so we're gonna we don't want to keep the people that are watching at home, you know, in a bunch, even though they can rewind and fast forward. But you know, we want to thank you, Sharhonda, for coming on today. All
Thank
right,
y'all.
and
I
being a
enjoyed it.
part of this it was an awesome conversation. I
Really.
definitely
I
learned a
enjoyed
lot.
it.
We are gonna definitely share this video out. So I'm actually going to post this for 8 a.m. instead of 10. Figure people are getting ready, they can listen to it. It'll be up early, and then of course the replay,
Okay.
it'll be there for replay. All right, so
Cool
thank you again. You know, and when we come back, we talked about Kanye pretty well. So I mean, everybody watch that video on the Joe Rogan podcast. It's a good interview to watch just to get a better understanding of Kanye West. And you know, it's not to change your mind, but you know, just watch the video. It's pretty cool. All right. Any last words, JD, Sharhonda? Any last words before we get out of here?
My last words would be um, anybody suffering from any mental health issue, whether it be large or small, if you're feeling anxiety, please seek help. You have NAMI, which is again National Alliance of Mental Illness. They have resources. Um, Red Cross. It's so many different avenues, but you can Google it. Just make sure you get some kind of help because mental health is serious. And in the Black community, we tend to shun it a lot. We tend to not want to go, and I don't need to. What somebody else gonna tell me that I can tell myself? In truth, you can't tell yourself.
Right.
The truth is, you. It just helps to seek counsel, to have somebody ask you a question, and then you have to think on it and answer it. It just reveals a lot more to you than you could have done by yourself. And so that's very helpful in managing your stress and um, keeping down illnesses that we can prevent, like high blood pressure. So seek help whenever you need it. Don't be afraid to do that. And I always will talk to somebody when they need help. So my inbox is always open as well. And thank y'all for having me, Andre and JB.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Thank you
You.
You're
very
welcome.
much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Until next time, we'll see you on the next episode of Black News Undisputed, the Morning Coffee Podcast. And remember, no justice.
Yeah.
Well, peace.
Sipping on that
Peace.
tea, but I need something thicker. Quench my thirst and give me a little kicker like that Black News Undisputed. I like that morning coffee, no cream with no sugar. Strong, black, and bold, and that's a fact. Reason why I keep coming back. So serve me up with that morning coffee. So serve me up with that morning coffee.